Have you ever believed in something so strongly that the whole world called you wrong? Have you ever been laughed at for speaking your truth? Today, you're going to hear the story of a man who did just that and changed the way we see the universe. His name was Galileo Galilei. But before we start, take a deep breath and say this with me. I will never stop learning. I will never stop asking questions. Now let's travel back in time to Italy in the year 1564. In a small city called Pisa, a baby boy was born. His parents named him Galileo. His father, Vincenzo Galilei, was a musician, a man who loved creativity and ideas. His mother, Julia, took care of the home. From the very beginning, Galileo's world was filled with music, curiosity, and questions. As a young boy, Galileo was different. While other children played outside, he would sit and watch how things moved. The way a pendulum swung, the way light fell on the walls, the sound of water dripping. He wanted to understand everything. Have you ever had that feeling? When you just want to know why something happens? That was Galileo every single day. When he was a teenager, his father sent him to study medicine at the University of Pisa. Medicine was considered a respectable profession, something that could bring money and status. But Galileo's heart was somewhere else. One day, he was sitting in a church, bored during a long ceremony, when he noticed a lamp hanging from the ceiling. The lamp was swinging gently, back and forth, back and forth. Galileo became fascinated. He timed the swinging using his pulse. He discovered that no matter how far the lamp swung, it took almost the same time to complete one swing. He didn't know it yet, but this simple observation would lead to the invention of the pendulum clock, years later. That's where his curiosity truly began. He realized the world is full of patterns, and those patterns can be measured. He started to question everything his teachers told him. When someone said heavy things fall faster than light things, Galileo didn't just believe it. He tested it. He dropped balls of different weights from the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa and discovered that they hit the ground at almost the same time. Can you imagine how shocking that was? The whole world believed Aristotle, a famous Greek philosopher, who had said heavier things fall faster. Galileo had just proved one of the greatest minds in history wrong. Let's pause for a moment. Say this with me. I will not be afraid to question. Good. Now repeat. Learning means testing ideas. Excellent. Galileo's curiosity didn't make him popular. Many professors didn't like him. They said, "Who is this young man who dares to question the great Aristotle?" But Galileo didn't stop. He became a mathematics professor himself and continued exploring the laws of motion. His experiments with inclined planes and pendulums helped build the foundation for modern physics. But Galileo's real fame and his real trouble began when he looked up at the night sky. In 1609, he heard that a new invention called the telescope had been made in Holland. Galileo didn't have one, so he built his own. Can you imagine that? Using just his hands and knowledge, he created a telescope powerful enough to see things no human had ever seen before. One cold night, Galileo pointed his telescope toward the moon. What he saw changed everything. The moon was not smooth and perfect as people believed. It had mountains, valleys, and shadows. It was not a divine sphere. It was a real physical world. Next, he looked at Jupiter and saw 4 tiny dots moving around it. They were moons orbiting Jupiter. For the first time, humans saw proof that not everything in the universe revolved around Earth. Galileo wrote his discoveries in a book called The Starry Messenger. It spread across Europe like fire. People were amazed, and some were terrified. Because at that time, the church taught that Earth was the center of the universe and everything, the sun, the stars, the planets, revolved around it. But Galileo's observations supported a different idea, the heliocentric theory proposed by Nicholas Copernicus, which said that the sun was at the center, not Earth. That idea was dangerous. Saying that Earth wasn't the center of everything wasn't just science, it was rebellion. It challenged the Church's power, yet Galileo believed that truth should never be hidden. He wrote, "All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. Let's practice speaking that together. Repeat after me slowly. All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. Again, the point is to discover them." Even though many people admired him, powerful men in the Church started watching him closely. They told him, "Do not teach that the Earth moves around the sun." Galileo promised he would stop. But how could a mind like his stop asking questions? How could he pretend not to see what was clearly true through his telescope? He kept studying in secret. For him, science was not just knowledge. It was faith. Faith in the power of reason, in the ability of the human mind to find truth. And that faith would soon put him in danger. Before we move on, think about this. Galileo's story is not just about science. It's about courage. It's about believing in what you see, even when others refuse to open their eyes. Maybe in your life you've had people tell you that your dreams are impossible. Maybe you've been told to stop questioning, to just accept things as they are. If so, remember Galileo. He didn't give up. He looked at the stars and said, "I must follow the evidence, no matter where it leads." Say this aloud. I will follow the evidence. I will believe in my own mind. Excellent. Now let's test your listening a little. Ready? Question 1. What did Galileo discover when he watched the swinging lamp? Question 2. What did he drop from the Leaning Tower of Pisa? Question 3. What did Galileo see when he looked at Jupiter through his telescope? Try to answer them aloud. Don't worry about mistakes. Mistakes are signs of learning. The answers are: 1. He discovered that the time of a pendulum swing stays nearly the same. 2. He dropped balls of different weights. 3. He saw 4 moons orbiting Jupiter. If you got any of those right, wonderful. You're learning not just English, but history and courage too. So by now we've seen Galileo the dreamer, the observer, and the rebel scientist. But his story is far from over. The real test, the one that would define his life, was still to come. When you follow truth, sometimes you find light, but sometimes you walk into darkness first. And Galileo's path was about to take him straight into the fire. When Galileo looked through his telescope, he wasn't just seeing stars and planets. He was seeing a new way of thinking, a new way of understanding life itself. But the more he looked, the more he challenged the world around him. And the world, especially the powerful Church, wasn't ready for that challenge. Imagine living in a time when most people believed the Earth was the center of everything. The sun, the moon, the planets, all were thought to circle around us. The Church taught this idea as truth. Questioning it wasn't just wrong, it was considered sinful. But Galileo, through his telescope, saw something else. He saw proof that the Earth moved around the sun. He saw moons orbiting other planets. He saw the changing phases of Venus, which could only be explained if Venus moved around the sun. The evidence was clear to him, so he began to write again. He explained his findings carefully, using simple language that people could understand. He wanted everyone to see what he had seen, not just scholars or scientists. He wanted the truth to belong to all people, but his words reached powerful ears. In 1616, the Catholic Church declared that the heliocentric theory, the idea that the Earth moved around the sun, was dangerous and false. They warned Galileo to stop supporting it. They told him to be silent. Imagine that, being told to stop speaking the truth because it made people uncomfortable. Would you have stopped? Galileo didn't stop completely. He obeyed on the surface, but in his heart, he knew silence couldn't last forever. He continued studying, writing notes, and discussing ideas privately with friends and students. Years passed and Galileo grew older. His hair turned gray, but his mind burned brighter than ever. Then, in 1623, a new pope was chosen, Pope Urban VIII. He admired Galileo's intelligence and even called him the light of the world. For a time, it seemed that Galileo could finally speak freely again. He decided to write his most famous book, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. This book was special. It was written like a conversation between three men, one who supported the traditional view that Earth was the center, one who supported the new Copernican theory, and one who tried to stay neutral. Galileo thought that by presenting both sides he could avoid trouble. But people quickly noticed that the character defending the old view sounded foolish, and that character's words resembled some of the Pope's own arguments. The church didn't find that funny. The book became popular across Europe. Scientists, thinkers, and ordinary readers were fascinated. They saw that Galileo's logic made sense. The sun-centered model wasn't just an idea anymore. It was becoming reality. But with fame came danger. The church accused Galileo of heresy, of going against the teachings of the Bible. In 1633, at the age of 69, Galileo was called to Rome to face trial. Imagine that. An old man, weak and tired, standing before the most powerful men in the world, being told that everything he believed in was wrong. He had spent his life searching for truth, and now he was being punished for it. During the trial, they questioned him harshly. They showed him documents. They demanded that he deny what he had seen with his own eyes. And finally, under pressure, Galileo gave in. He said he would no longer teach that the earth moves around the sun. He was forced to say that he had been mistaken. But as he left the courtroom, legend says he whispered the words, "Eppur si muove," and yet it moves. Those words became a symbol of courage, of standing by the truth. Even when the world silences you, repeat this with me, and yet it moves. Again. Truth doesn't stop, even if we stop speaking. After the trial, Galileo was not sent to prison, but was placed under house arrest. For the rest of his life, he was not allowed to leave his home. His books were banned. His visitors were watched. He was a prisoner, not behind bars, but within his own walls. But even then, Galileo didn't stop working. He said, "You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself." Think about that. What a powerful message. Not just for science, but for learning English, for life, for everything. True learning is not about memorizing. It's about discovering what's already inside you. Repeat that after me slowly. You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. Beautiful. So, what did Galileo do under house arrest? He continued studying motion, gravity, and time. He couldn't look at the stars anymore, but he still looked for truth on Earth. He studied how things fall, how they roll, how they accelerate. His notes from this time became the foundation of modern physics. Even Isaac Newton, the scientist who later described the laws of motion and gravity, said that he stood on the shoulders of giants. One of those giants was Galileo. By this time, Galileo was going blind. The man who had once seen the stars clearer than anyone else could no longer see at all, but he could still think. He could still teach. His students visited him, learned from him, and carried his ideas forward. His light continued to shine, even when his eyes could no longer see. Let's pause here and reflect. What do we learn from Galileo's story so far? First, that truth can be dangerous, but it is always worth defending. Second, that learning never stops, no matter your age or condition. And third, that one person's courage can change the world. Now let's do a little practice together. Repeat these short sentences after me to build your confidence and your English rhythm. Ready? I will never stop asking questions. I will search for truth. I will believe in my ideas. I will stay strong even when others disagree. Excellent job. You're not just learning English. You're learning the language of courage. Even though Galileo died in 1642, his ideas lived on. Decades later, scientists proved that he had been right. The Earth does move around the sun. The Church, long after his death, finally admitted that Galileo had spoken the truth. It took more than 300 years, but truth cannot stay hidden forever. Galileo's story teaches us that real learning takes bravery. It means opening your eyes when others keep theirs closed. It means making mistakes and learning from them. It means not being afraid to say, I don't know, but I will find out. Before we move to the next part, let's imagine Galileo's final days. He sits near a window, blind but peaceful. His student reads to him from his own book, and he smiles faintly. He knows that one day people will understand. He knows that truth moves slowly, but it always moves. Just like the earth, quietly spinning, carrying us all toward the light of understanding. Galileo Galilei spent his final years alone but not defeated. He could no longer see the stars, but he could still feel their presence. His mind was as sharp as ever, and he kept working, even though his body was weak and his freedom was gone. That's what true passion looks like. The kind that doesn't fade with time or trouble. Think about it. Most people, when faced with failure, give up. But Galileo never did. He once said, I have never met a man so ignorant that I couldn't learn something from him. What a powerful sentence, right? It means that everyone, no matter who they are, can teach us something. Say it with me slowly. I can learn from everyone. Again, every person has something to teach me. Galileo's spirit was full of curiosity and humility. He didn't see himself as a genius above others. He simply saw himself as a man who asked questions. He believed that truth belonged to no one, and that the universe was open to all minds willing to explore. Even though the Church silenced him, his ideas traveled far. His students, loyal and brave, copied his manuscripts secretly and shared them with other scientists. They became the bridge between Galileo and the next generation, a generation that would change the world forever. One of those future thinkers was Isaac Newton, who famously said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." And Galileo was one of those giants. The connection between them is like a line of light through history. From Galileo's telescope to Newton's gravity, to Einstein's relativity, all the way to the satellites orbiting Earth today. Every time we use GPS or look at space pictures from NASA, we're living in the world Galileo helped to create. Let's make this moment a speaking practice. Repeat, I am standing on the shoulders of giants. And again, every discovery begins with curiosity. Excellent. Now, let's step out of history for a moment and think about Galileo's story as a lesson for our own lives, especially for language learning. You see, learning English, or anything new, is a little like looking through Galileo's telescope. At first, things look blurry. You might think, I'll never understand this, or it's too hard. But the more you adjust your focus, the clearer it becomes. Galileo didn't see the moons of Jupiter on his first try. He built, broke, and rebuilt his telescope again and again. He made mistakes, but he learned from every one of them, just like you will when you practice speaking English. Each time you try, you get a little closer to clarity. Say this with me. Mistakes help me see more clearly. Every day I get better. Beautiful. Let's go deeper. Galileo wasn't just fighting for science. He was fighting for freedom of thought. In his time, knowledge was controlled by powerful institutions. But Galileo believed that the human mind should be free to explore. He believed that learning should never depend on permission. It should depend on curiosity. He once wrote, "We cannot teach people anything. We can only help them discover it within themselves." Remember that quote from before. Let's think about it again. It means that the power to learn is already inside you. You don't need perfect grammar books or expensive schools to start learning. You just need curiosity. The same kind of curiosity Galileo had when he looked up at the stars. Take a deep breath. Now repeat after me. The power to learn is inside me. I will not wait for permission to grow. That's the spirit Galileo lived by. Now let's return to his final days. It's 1642. Galileo is old, blind, and frail. The world outside has changed, but not enough. The church still sees him as a dangerous thinker, and his books are still banned. Yet visitors come quietly to his home, students from across Italy who still want to learn from him. He teaches them with his voice, using his memory instead of his sight. He describes experiments, explains the laws of motion, and encourages them to think freely. One of his students, Vincenzo Viviani, would later write that even in his blindness, Galileo spoke with such energy that you could almost see the stars through his words. Imagine that. A man who couldn't see light still sharing it with others. Sometimes you might feel blind in your own journey. You might not see your progress clearly, but like Galileo, you can still shine through your words, your effort, and your courage. Say this with me. Even when I cannot see results, I will keep going. My effort is never wasted. Now here's something interesting. Galileo's discoveries weren't just about astronomy. They also shaped our understanding of everyday life. Motion, speed, time, and force. When you ride a bicycle, drive a car, or watch an object fall, you're seeing Galileo's laws at work. His experiments helped explain how the world moves, not by magic, but by measurable, understandable laws. He was one of the first people to combine observation and mathematics, to prove that nature follows patterns that can be described with numbers. This way of thinking changed science forever. But Galileo's story also teaches us that truth doesn't spread easily. What does that tell us? That sometimes your impact isn't seen immediately. Sometimes your truth takes time to be understood. But that doesn't make it less true. Let's say this together. My work will matter, even if not today. Truth always finds its way. Excellent. Now let's turn this lesson toward you, the English learner, the dreamer, the thinker. Just like Galileo, you are observing, experimenting, and discovering. Every time you learn a new word, you're expanding your universe. Every time you listen, speak, and think in English, you're building a telescope for your mind, one that lets you see new ideas, new people, and new possibilities. Remember this. The stars don't belong only to scientists, and English doesn't belong only to native speakers. They both belong to everyone who has the courage to look up, to listen, and to keep trying. Let's do a short interactive part again. You'll listen. Repeat and answer. Repeat, learning is my telescope. Through learning, I see the world. Now answer this question aloud. What was Galileo's biggest discovery? The stars, or the courage to question? Take a moment to answer. If you said the courage to question, you're absolutely right. Because without courage, there is no discovery. As Galileo's life neared its end, he wasn't bitter. He was calm. He once said, "The intention of the Holy Spirit is to teach us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go." It was his gentle way of saying that science and faith can both exist, that truth and belief can live side by side. He passed away in January 1642, in his home near Florence. Outside, the night sky shone as always. Inside, the man who had brought those stars closer to humanity took his last breath. But his story didn't end there. It lives on, in books, in telescopes, in classrooms, and maybe right now in your heart. Because learning his story means learning how to stay curious, how to stay brave, and how to speak your truth in any language. Say this one more time with me. I will stay curious. I will keep learning. I will look at the stars and dream big, perfect. When Galileo Galilei passed away in 1642, the world lost a man but gained a legacy. The same year he died, another child was born in England, Isaac Newton. Some people say it was destiny, that the light of discovery simply moved from one soul to another. Galileo's story didn't end with his death. It was only the beginning of a new chapter in human understanding. Let's take a moment to imagine that night. The sky above Florence is dark, clear, and filled with stars. The same stars that Galileo once watched through his handmade telescope. The same stars that taught him to question what everyone else accepted. He might not have known it, but those stars were his witnesses, silent, patient, shining for generations that would one day understand his truth. Galileo's ideas became the foundation for what we now call modern science. He taught us to test ideas, not just believe them. He showed us that knowledge grows through observation, evidence, and courage. In a way, Galileo was one of the first true teachers of critical thinking, a way of learning that you can use in any part of life. Even in learning English, when you study a new language, you do exactly what Galileo did. You observe, test, and adjust. You listen, repeat, and improve. Sometimes people might laugh at your accent, or you might feel afraid to make mistakes. But remember Galileo, he was laughed at too. He was even punished for what he believed. Yet he never stopped learning, never stopped exploring. Say this with me. I will never stop exploring. Mistakes are part of discovery. Curiosity is my power. Good. Now, let's think about the deeper message of Galileo's life. His story isn't just about science or stars. It's about truth, faith, and courage. It's about the power of a single person to change the world through the strength of an idea. When people told Galileo that Earth was still, he said, "Look closer." When they told him to stay silent, he said, "The universe speaks." When they told him to stop dreaming, he built his telescope higher. He didn't fight with anger, he fought with evidence. He didn't attack with words, and he answered with facts. That's a lesson we can all learn, whether in debates, in learning, or in life. The strongest voice is calm, patient, and true. Repeat this. Truth doesn't need to shout. I will be calm and confident. Beautiful. Let's fast forward a few centuries. Today, people all over the world, from children in classrooms to scientists at NASA, still speak Galileo's name with respect. His face appears on statues, his name on space probes, his discoveries in every textbook. The moons he saw around Jupiter are now called the Galilean moons. Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Think about that. A man with a handmade telescope saw those moons 400 years ago, and today spacecraft fly past them, taking photographs and studying their ice and atmosphere. His dream didn't die. It expanded beyond imagination. Now ask yourself, what dream are you building today? What discovery will your curiosity lead to? Maybe it's learning English to connect with the world. Maybe it's understanding yourself more deeply. Or maybe it's simply daring to ask a question no one else has asked before. Say this aloud. My questions have value. My dreams matter. Like Galileo, I will look up. You see, Galileo's story teaches us something essential. Learning is not about perfection, it's about perseverance. He didn't have perfect tools, but he used what he had. You might not have perfect English now, but you have curiosity, passion, and time. That's all you need. Here's a small speaking exercise. Your own Galileo challenge. Repeat these simple sentences aloud and clearly. I am curious. I make mistakes and learn. I discover something new every day. I believe in myself. I am not afraid to speak. Excellent. You sound powerful already. Now let's connect this back to your English journey in a deeper way. Galileo's telescope helped him see farther. Just like English will help you reach farther. Through language, you can see new ideas, cultures, and people. Each new word you learn is like a new star appearing in your sky. At first, they might seem far away, but soon they form constellations, patterns that make sense, that tell stories, that light your way. Galileo's discoveries remind us that progress takes time. He spent years studying, failing, and trying again. Some nights the sky was cloudy and he couldn't see a thing, but he didn't give up. Maybe some days you feel stuck with English too. Maybe you forget a word, or grammar feels confusing. That's okay. Every learner has cloudy nights. But the stars are still there waiting. Say this with me. Even on cloudy nights, the stars are there. I will keep learning even when it's hard. Now let's talk about something very human, fear. Galileo faced fear every day. The fear of being wrong, the fear of punishment, the fear of being alone. But he kept moving forward. You might feel fear too when you speak English in front of others. That's natural. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's speaking anyway. So next time you hesitate to speak English, remember Galileo standing before the most powerful men in the world, trembling but unbroken. Remember his whisper, and yet it moves, and let that whisper guide you. Say this softly, and yet I move. Beautiful. You are not standing in a courtroom, but you are standing in front of your own challenge, and you are brave enough to face it. Now let's go back to Galileo one last time. Years after his death, his ideas became the seeds of a revolution, the scientific revolution. His courage inspired generations of scientists, inventors, and dreamers. Without him, we might still be looking at the stars and believing they move around us. Because of him, we know we are part of something much greater. A small planet moving through a vast, beautiful universe. That truth, that we are not the center of everything, is humbling, but it's also freeing. It reminds us that we are all connected. We share the same stars, the same air, the same questions. Galileo showed us that knowledge connects humanity, just as language does. When you learn English, you are joining that connection, that shared search for understanding. Let's take a moment for gratitude. Say, thank you, Galileo, for your courage. Thank you, teachers and dreamers of the world. Thank you, universe, for giving me curiosity. Beautiful. Now, I want you to imagine your own telescope. Close your eyes for a moment and see it. Not made of glass and metal, but of your thoughts and dreams. Every time you read, listen, or speak in English, you look through it. You see the world more clearly. You understand more. You grow stronger. So when you finish this story, don't just remember Galileo as a scientist. Remember him as a mirror, showing you what's possible when you keep asking, keep learning, and keep believing. Repeat this one last time with me. I will ask questions. I will seek truth. I will keep learning. I will shine my light. Because like Galileo, you too can light up the darkness. With knowledge, with words, and with courage. And as you look up at the night sky tonight, maybe you'll notice the moon. It's the same moon Galileo saw. You can whisper softly, I see it too. Because in that moment, you are part of his story, and his story is part of you. Galileo Galilei, the man who dared to see differently, taught the world that truth is not afraid of time, that learning never ends, and that one voice can change everything. So, as you continue your English journey, carry his message with you. Keep your eyes open, your mind curious and your heart brave, because somewhere beyond the clouds of doubt your own stars are waiting. And when you reach them, remember to help others see them too, just like Galileo did.